It should be Jim Dacey also, but he's not here. Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Sure. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm good.
No, it looks good. Yeah. The only question I had was on that marketing for Auburn Brandon. Made sense. I figured that's what it was, but I just wanted to confirm. So, but yeah, no, other than that, everything is pretty standard for us. So, mhm.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Yeah, same here.
All right. It's my kind of meeting.
I know. I'll take one.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I'm gonna turn my camera and microphone off and do some work, some Medit related work here for a little bit. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Perfect. Do the same. Thanks, guys.
Okay, I'll call the meeting of the Auburn Industrial Development Authority to order Wednesday, October 21st, 2020 at 5 p.m. We are meeting remotely due to COVID. Can I have roll call, please, Taylor?
Mr. Andre,
Present?
Mr. Beer,
Here.
Mr. Giantino,
Here?
Mr. Gasper.
Here.
Mr. LaVarnway,
Here.
Ms. Wilbur McLeod. She's absent. Mr. Cuddy. Absent. Mr. Gravius. Absent. Mr. Dacey. Absent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the September 16th regular meeting and the September 16th governance committee meeting? If so,
Yes.
can I have a motion to approve?
So moved, Ron.
Have a second?
Roger.
Thank you. It's been seconded and moved. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Carried. We will now move on to bills and communications. Has everyone had a chance to review TGW and CETA quarter 3? If so, with no questions, can I have a motion for A and B, please?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
One of the comments in their engagement letters that they're going to bill us as the work progresses, which is fine. They, as you may know, they're billing us in advance, and no work is being done. The bill is not due till the end of October, so that's going to be our process here. Is that we're going to, in some cases, pay them in advance.
Hello.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, you all set, Roger?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Carried. Thank you. We will now move to for report of the treasurer.
Okay, actually it's on page 12 of the packet, the profit and loss budget performance for September 2020. And I would point out that in September we had 9350 in admin fees, which came from Avstar. So that was a nice fee coming in. Our major expense for the month of September and the quarter ending September in the left-hand column is $6,000 or $5,000 for our quarterly admin fee from CETA. And I see we have a credit for travel and meetings, which is nice. In any event, you can see, just to get a sense of where we are for the year, our fees to date in the January-September 20 column are almost 180,000. So obviously some pretty solid things happening this year, and this is what is allowing us to take on the branding project. So solid year. We'd love to repeat more of them, but in any event, you'll see later in the presentation, we'll have a budget presentation for 2021, and we'll talk more about the plans for next year at that time.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Roger? Tracy, do we have anything for the quarter three. Is that part of what Roger just did, or was just that was? Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. I've got that. Thank you. All right. If there's no more questions, can I have a motion, please?
I'll second.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Carried. Thank you. We will now move on to unfinished business. The branding discussion with TGW.
Tracy, what about the pilot disbursement report?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I apologize. Are there any questions about the pilot disbursement report that we all received?
You know, I had just one observation, where you can see in the Bluefield Manor that we are now, that's payment 20 of 20, I believe. And so I guess it's just another call to action, so to speak, to have that matter resolved at some point in time as to how we're going to go forward, because this is, am I correct in that, Tracy? I think this is their last one. So. Okay.
So I had 3 payments come in. Auburn Community Hotel, Community Computer, and Mac Studios have all paid. You'll see them next month on the disbursement report. So those will be hitting the account.
And I guess as a nice follow-up, I guess as a follow-up to that, Taylor, is the fact, Taylor and Tracy's, as with many landlords in the era of COVID, some folks are missing their rental payments. Do you have any sense of any of our payments being perhaps at risk this year?
I haven't heard anything pertaining to that.
Okay. There's leverage if they don't make the payment. So, okay. I wanted to raise that question just because of the various circumstances that are existing in the COVID era.
Okay, any other questions on that? Thank you for pointing that out to me. I'm sorry I missed it. Can I have a motion, please? Or has it already been moved? Okay, I'm sorry. Just conversation. Okay, I'm sorry. We'll move on to unfinished business, the discussion with TGW. Hi, Lisa. Evan, how are you guys?
Hi, folks. Sure,
Yeah, Lisa, go
absolutely.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, sure. Hi, everybody. This is Lisa from TGW Studio. Gavin and I are the founding partners there. We've been lucky enough to have met or at least seen most of your faces already, but nice to meet everyone that we have not yet. Yes, we are a social impact marketing studio, and we have already started to hit the ground running with Tracy and Devin in terms of the place branding process for Auburn. Very excited about it. We have already jumped into the first phase, of which, gathering and analyzing existing research. There's several studies that are accessible to us that we've been appreciative of. And next week, we are conducting the first focus group along with some phone interviews. And the following week, we will be doing a branding workshop. So, we've got some things lined up. We wanted to provide just a little quick brushstroke of what the first phase looks like. It's, we're trying to get as much strategic things done before the end of the year, and sort of using that as much of a milestone as possible, so that we can really just try to be as efficient as possible for you folks. But we've already uncovered some really cool and interesting things. Gavin and I will be meeting with some small business owners this Thursday to just do some general intros, socially distanced introductions, and meet some people. But again, we're super honored and excited to do this work with you folks, and we're planning on, in addition to the board meetings, in which I'm sure Tracy and Devin will be giving you updates about the project, we'll be providing an email summary, or in some way just sort of a status update every few weeks. So that we can kind of just make sure that everybody feels like they know what's going on, because there's a lot of moving parts at the moment, and just make sure everybody knows what's going on and get as much feedback and suggestions from the board. Gavin and I couldn't speak highly enough about you folks when we initially had the interview with you all. We were like, what a dynamic group. Everybody looks so different. Everybody was just so interesting. And we just think it's such a really great opportunity to get to know you all. So thanks again. And Gav, I don't know if I missed anything, but.
Yeah, no, I think that really nails it. I'm Gavin, the other founding partner, as Lisa mentioned. The full TGW team is extremely thrilled to be participating and helping out in this process. I think, one of the in terms of general expectations, I know we went through a couple of different line items, but I know you're probably all wondering, when are we going to see the beautiful stuff, the logo and the website? And that's coming very quickly. As Lisa said, there are many moving parts, but really right now, unfortunately for you all, fortunately for us, we're really in that input and research phase that you don't get to see anything great for another month or so. But know and trust that we, as Lisa said, we've been hitting the ground running, and are just finding some really amazing research and tidbits of information that will be very beneficial, and are extremely excited about the focus group coming up, and then tomorrow's trip as well, to do some more informal walkthroughs with a couple of business owners who have recently gone through some pretty big moves. So I think we'll gain some really good insights from that perspective of what it's like to really be growing and exploding business in Auburn, and what really attracts business to the area. So we're very excited about that, as well as the phone interviews as well. So we so greatly appreciate the patience. I know it might be tough to kind of wonder during this phase what's going on, but we really are working very very hard with Tracy and Devin, as Lisa mentioned, and are excited to hopefully bring some really great stuff to the table for the city.
Well, one comment I have, I certainly, I guess, agree with Gavin's observation that the people he's met on the board are very interesting and creative people. So I couldn't agree more with that observation about us. So, but In terms of, we have an engagement letter in the packet tonight. Is that something we're going to execute tonight? Or is that something that's already been executed?
We haven't.
Okay.
I didn't know if we were going to jump in because I had the same answer, Tracy.
Well, that's, those of us that have been in that type of work, you go forward without a signed engagement letter at your peril. But I think that we'll be good for it. I'm looking, from what I saw, just from I'm going to speak from a I guess financial perspective, and so just a quick overview. It still looks like we're in that 80,000 plus or minus range, and so I think that's something that's been consistent. So all the board should know that. One thing this is a real in the weeds type of housekeeping question, but in addition to the real substance of the project, which is a great brand and all that sort of thing, we internally will be doing some accounting, and in terms of bringing on a website, the accounting for the project allows us either to capitalize or expense certain items. It occurred to me that you, as the consultants, have probably, is it possible you've encountered various clients who like you to present the invoices in such a way that it's obvious that amount that should be expensed versus that amount that should be capitalized? I'm just curious because we have the capability of doing it ourselves, but I'm just curious if in some cases you detail the invoices so that because certain stages like planning can be expensed, whereas application and infrastructure development is capitalized. Is that something that you get involved with at all in terms of pointing that out or designating such things in your invoices so that we would have support as to how we account for it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we can certainly do, we're happy to go through and even provide more detail, because there are probably items along that process that we've bucketed into a larger group just for simplicity at this stage, that we're happy to revisit and kind of, if you present the beneficial aspects of that for you all as the board and the organization, we can certainly break that up in any way that makes the most sense for you. We certainly want to make that happen and have certainly done it in the past. We've done,
Okay.
things with timing in terms of.
Yeah. So it's not an unusual request on our part then?
Nope, not at all.
And plus the fact, with us being a governmental quasi nonprofit entity, the idea of tax deductibility is not quite the issue it would be with your typical for-profit client. So I don't want to belabor this, but that would be very helpful to have that information. We have rigorous auditors, and I imagine they'll inspect these invoices in great detail to ensure that we've properly accounted for things. So.
Absolutely. And I think as we work with Tracy and Devin a little bit more and get to those phases, I think they'll be able to identify, some of the work that has even, been done or we've started or are about to start, because, certainly we'll be ahead of the game in terms of looking ahead a few weeks at least. And, they'll be able to identify, I think, really well what you're looking for, and then we can make adjustments as necessary. We're happy to do that.
Good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Of course.
Anything more? Well, I guess we're all done then. We thank you both for coming tonight and sharing this exciting information. Continue the good work, please, and thank you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yes.
One further administrative question. Would we need a vote on signing the engagement letter, or is that part of the original agreement that we made a couple of weeks at the last meeting?
Oh, Tracy, you're muted.
We can't hear you. You're back.
very, very, can slightly hear you at best. So,
You're back.
Yeah.
so moved that we accept the engagement letter from TGW.
It's been moved by Roger, seconded by Gwen. All those in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Very good, it passed. Thank you.
Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank
Now
you.
you can-
Thanks, everybody.
Same to you, Deb.
Enjoy the
Take
rest of
care.
your weeks. All right. Bye-bye.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, very good. We'll move on to, oh goodness. We go to B, which is report of the governance committee pilot criteria discussion.
Tracy, I can barely hear you.
Yeah, Jimmy's here too. You know, I found this to be a very interesting exercise because I think it gave us an opportunity to look at current approaches used to decide or discern who we'd want to enter into pilot kinds of relationships with. But I think the other thing that it gave us the opportunity to do was to think a little bit about what kind of community do we really want to have, and what types of businesses will help us have the kind of community that we want. So I love that we looked at things that I would say would be pretty traditional and hard, right? The industries to support, the metrics, that kind of thing. But I think the discussion about the community values is equally important, because we really can, in the work that we do, support the development of a very specific kind of community and that drives our economic development, our economy, that also not only, I think, honors the success and the hallmark companies in our community, but makes room for us to also provide support for those emerging entrepreneurs who will be innovating and doing innovative things. So I think that this was a very important conversation to have, and that I look forward to utilizing this information as we're vetting people who might be wanting to renew or to do some kinds of adjustments in their existing pilots, but also for us to utilize when we're looking at new projects. The other thing, Tracy, is that I would encourage you to take a look at this and, as appropriate, start to communicate about this as part of your writing for the newspaper as you think it's appropriate, to talk about how we're going about what we're doing and why it's important for us to consider moving in this way.
I had a question, and looking at it, first of all, it's very interesting that this dovetails, hand in glove with the branding project. I mean, that's what we're doing as well. And so I see this, as a wish list. And the way that I guess being analytic, I suppose, the fact that manufacturing is at the top of the list does not indicate, does it, that it's the number one? These are not listed in order of priority then.
Tracy, did you organize them that way? I don't recall us having that conversation. Okay. I think we were basically taking a look at what kinds of companies are kind of here, what kinds of companies we might want to onboard as well. And we did, I think, really talk about, I think we talked about this too, Roger, during our interviews with the marketing companies, that, there still is a percentage of our community that really is longing for the good old days of Columbia Rope, right? And that we know, we know that some of those companies, that part of what we have the ability to do through AIDA is to honor companies that are on that trajectory of work. But I also think we have an opportunity to look at some of these newer kinds of businesses that have an equal possibility of doing pretty amazing things within this criteria to continue to build an economy in our community, not only to support those of us now, but to build a future for those two little men folk I have in my house, the grandsons. So I loved that opportunity to be forward thinking for the generations that'll come behind us as well. So I didn't experience this as a prioritized list.
Mm-hmm.
I just think we were shooting out ideas.
Yes. Well, I agree with you. The honoring the old and bringing in the new, if only in some cases, because we may not have a choice. Manufacturing may not be
right
that voluminous to have. Of course, if whatever Tessie wants to do, we certainly will be receptive to that. Mm-hmm. So, it was interesting. It's a separate exercise, but yet it really does fit with the branding project. So that we're kind of thinking about these things, whether we're thinking governmentally or whether we're thinking branding. So I think hopefully it'll come to fruition.
Well, I was thinking about the alignment of these two things at the time that we had this conversation. But Tracy, this could be really interesting to also share with TGW, and as they're doing focus groups and having conversations, to have them look at some companies that are in, that are on this list, and have them maybe speak to some of them that are either here, or just find some that what would it take to interest a business like yours. So I see where there could be a relationship between this piece of work and what they're about to do. Yeah. I agree.
It's a lot of work. I appreciate the work you guys put into it. It looks really good. Very thorough. the living wage is very important to me. A lot of times we've celebrated pilots that, that people can't afford to take care of themselves and their families, and that's something that I like to try to stay away from.
I'm glad to see the environmentally sustainable issues are described, because that has to be the priority of the next decade coming up, and I hope we can be at the front edge of that, as opposed to certainly don't want to be lagging behind in that area. So
I agree with that point. I was thinking the same thing, Roger, especially as we're getting ready to vote on new rules and regulations for the watershed. It seems like all the moons are aligning right now for some reason,
Well, we have no choice. We have,
Yeah.
When you're not given a choice, then it's easy to see what the direction is. We're running out of time.
Well, I think the other piece of it too is that it acknowledges through our lens and from our point of view, I think that some of our back conversation was really looking at the poverty stats of the county. And I think a lot of times they live, so almost like in addition to, what's really going on here. So to also look at how a company could create good job opportunity for underserved or low-income people also helps us build a better quality of life for those in our community. So I love that it has a great mix of values that are almost technically related and values that are really focused on the quality of life, and allows AIDA to participate in addressing a major community issue that we all know is negatively impacting every entity, not-for-profit as well as public education sector in our county. So if we can inspire companies to do things that can help us impact that, that's the role that we can play as well. So I loved that the values were pretty well rounded.
Okay. Anything else before we move on? Thanks again, everyone.
I was just going to add one thing, Bill.
Go ahead.
Maybe even something down the road, adding something around training into those kind of values or metrics. Something around training for people as well. It's kind of implied, I think, by this, but it may be calling it out at a later time. But I agree with all the other comments. Are definitely a good summation of everything.
Yeah, very
I
good.
think it could be added, Jeffrey. I also think that this will help us think about the kinds of questions we want to ask applicants. So we can certainly ask them to demonstrate it in the application process, but I also think when we're having conversations with them, however we frame the questions, I want to know what that looks like when they're doing it. And so I think anything you think we should be specific about, I know you're taking a look at this list, but I would invite you to send those other ideas into Tracy.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Okay, are we ready to move on? Thank you, everyone. Great discussion. Tracy, can you give us a seat of staff update, please?
What business is that, Tracy?
Mhm. Mhm.
Tracy, what was the first business you were talking about? Tracy, what was the first business you were talking about? Expanding? Okay, that's what I can catch. Okay, thank you. Mhm.
Have you gotten some good applicants in pool of applicants or?
Okay, that it, Tracy? That's a bad thing? Is that what you're saying? Oh. But it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard when you interviewed Taylor, was it? Okay, thank you, Tracy. So, speaking of Taylor, Under new business, we have assigned assistant secretary. Tracy, can you help me out with that? Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by Gwen, second by Roger. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Okay, we now move to B, report Audit and Finance Committee of the October 21st meeting.
I'll pass.
Yeah, there's really it's on the last page of the packet there, so everybody can see it. The only line item we really kind of discussed was marketing Auburn brand. The $20,000 there is really a high-end kind of placeholder for the ongoing cost next year for the branding project. So that was really the only variance that we had, and anything that we really talked about. But other than that, everything was pretty status quo, I guess I'll say.
I had a question or observation about it, is that we want to realize that the $20,000 placeholder probably will be the expenses for the project next year for our profit and loss, but I think you expect the project to be done next year. Is that correct? Okay. So our expectation is if it's roughly $80,000 project, 20,000 in 2021, therefore the remaining 60 you expect to expend out of cash in 2020 then, in the next couple months. Okay. Thank you.
Anything else on that report? If not, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Jimmy, seconded by Ron. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. So we move on. Is there any board member reports? Anyone get anything they want to share?
I don't have anything I want to share. I just wanted to ask Tracy about what your observations are about the impact of COVID, and help me just understand this. We had some funds were making available to small businesses. What's the status of that initiative as well? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's October 28th. You're welcome.
So are we still communicating to business owners that those funds are still available? Mhm. Is that by design, Tracy? Is there a strategy behind not being more proactive in promoting that those funds are available? Mhm. 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 I would, yeah, you know, I trust your judgment around this, but I think if I'm concerned about that too, even just the uptick in cases in our own community is making me concerned about what the fall and winter is really going to be like. And I think that what I'm observing in a lot of business owners is that they're sort of riding that wave of shock denial, bargaining, pre-acceptance depression, and like, oh man, this is my reality. So I wouldn't assume that the silence isn't because of a lack of need. I would observe it as possibly being that business owners are really like hunkered down and trying to make it happen. And because every single day, you never know what Governor Cuomo's going to say to us, that people, the emotional condition of business owners might be some of that too. So as you see fit and feasible, I would encourage you to be proactive in promoting it, because I do think that businesses are going to take another hit, and that if we can use those funds to support some local businesses, I would encourage you to do that. Hello.
So can I just talk on this topic? Can I talk a little bit about CDBG and the money that was made available to us? We had received an additional, I happen to have the email up in front of me, $523,000. We had another $100,000 in a revolving loan fund that Tracy mentioned. Out of that first round, $304,000 went to business assistance. There was some set aside for housing repairs, $170,000 for human services. And the next round, we've been given, I think, $230,000, approximately $230,000. Apparently, the direction from HUD was the last round was very business centered. So they wanted us to look at other areas that may need funding. So some of the areas that Jenny had come up with were rental assistance, eviction assistance if people need legal assistance, childcare. BTW has exhausted their emergency funds. They're still providing daycare. So that's why this next meeting is very important. There were some things that were brought up about technology, workforce development. My point there was, I think we should really be focusing on immediate relief, like you said, Gwen. And if we can free up some additional funds for businesses, and HUD will approve that because it has to go through an approval process. I'm hoping that we can do that, because I think you're right. I think there's people that are just trying to ride this thing out, and it's going to get to a point where they can't ride it out anymore. And if we can free up at least, a little bit of that money. And another area that was we were going to focus on was addiction services. Obviously, we're seeing an uptick there. because a lot of the in-person meetings are not able to be held. If they are, they're at a smaller capacity. And that's, I keep in contact with Adam Duckett, and that's one of his major concerns. He's getting the phone calls of addiction, the addiction crisis. So if you have input, please attend that meeting. It's virtual.
Trace, and I don't know the feasibility of this, but I'd also just, or Jimmy, I don't know where this would fall, but I would just check in to see what's going on with the local arts organizations as well. I don't know if that's in our bailiwick. And I'm affiliated with the Central New York Community Foundation. So I was made aware that I think the Cuba Fund has like $100,000 and that they're not getting for COVID relief for not-for-profits. So I know that because they're one of my clients right now. I just got off their board. But I think if we can look at this globally and where we can align dollars, even if it's not us pushing it out, I think we need to have a global understanding of what's happening in the community, because those organizations are also putting money into the economy and just making sure that we're covering the bases to the degree that we can. So, Jamie, if you can make sure I know the date of that meeting, I'll certainly try to attend. Say it again, was that the October 28th meeting?
October 28th, you can register online. Okay. And in regards to arts organizations, in that 304,000 in the first round, we dedicated 80,000 specifically for arts organizations. Okay. So all the local arts organizations, APT, Stewart House, Keegan Museum, Schweinfurt, they all received a chunk of money. Willard Chapel.
Because I think that they're being equally impacted. So I think anything we can do sort of, is to kind of check in with them. And when we can, even if it's just we're advocating, we may not be the ones to give them the money, but advocating for people who can give them funding to do it, because it all is part of the puzzle of what I think is driving business in the area. So I think this is good. Thanks, Trace. I was just curious.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything? If not, we'll move to executive session. I need a motion to go into executive session, please.
So motion.
Moved by Jimmy, second by Glenn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? We are Opposed, abstain. Okay, we're now back in executive session. Can we, I'm sorry, regular session. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Gwen, seconded by Roger. Okay, thank you all. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Yep.
Have a good night.
evening.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Good work, Trace.
Bye.